For all of you who have joined in as we were speaking, please do grab a pen and a paper. The other codes of creativity, as I call it, is that this is something that I practice at the start of all my sessions, which is to emotionally collect our goodwill and energy and make it a very emotionally safe and thriving space. I mean, I have often heard people say that, so what if people troll? I'm like, why would they? So I start with that trust, and I'm sure each one of you have that trust inside you. It is actually trust that brings all of us together. You don't know me, I don't know you, but we agreed to come together and spend some time together. So I'm sure each one of you have emotional trust and goodwill at heart. I just wanted to make sure that we make this space very sacred and we bring just a positivity in, because only when we feel safe, we can think creatively. Otherwise, we think defensively. And that is the difference I'm trying to make with my work. If there is one line or one value system or one core message, it is really emotional safety. So yeah, I just wanted to put that little introduction in so that we all get going with our best selves forward. So I think it's now a reasonable time to start. And yeah, all of us have pen, paper, emotional safety, and goodwill in space. Tick, 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 check.
Yes.
Awesome. So I wanted to first talk about, I wanted to first talk a little bit about things that we think are different between us and children. You see, children are generally, if you look at a child, and either he or she is asking for something, crying, nagging, or they are very busy doing nothing, and they're often very happy. And when we look at them, at least I can speak for myself, and I have one child. At times I just sit back and ponder, what is it that makes her happy and I cannot see? I mean, what's that secret? Of course, they have a lot of things which we didn't have, by which I don't mean materialistic thing or expensive things. But if I enter her room, there are Legos, there are kinetic sand, there is this, jelly kind of slime and Lego. There's all kind of, Play-Doh and all of that, right? We don't have that. As adults, we really have our lives in white, black, blue, gray. The most we have is really a pen and a paper. And even that, for many of us, we don't remember when was the last time we wrote longhand. But then we have our phone, we have our handheld, a phone that can also make calls, but most of the times we use it to consume. We use it to scroll through feedbacks and news and timelines and updates and see pictures, post pictures, take short videos. It keeps us engaged, it keeps us connected. But what more can we do in our lives to make it more joyful? And imagine if while doing that, we also get this bonus of something that will not take us away from what we are already doing. Like we may say that we are too busy. I mean, I have got office work, I have got things to complete at home, and I'm too busy and I don't have time for anything more. But what if this was not anything more? What if this was something that would make us better in the work that we are already doing? That would make us better at an office meeting because we can speak better. That would make us better while we are scrolling through social media feedback because we can now express better, hear better, understand better.
The bank statement.
Oh, sorry, another ground rule. Could we have all of us mute ourselves other than me while I am talking, and while uh, we have a Q&A, I am very happy to go ahead and unmute each one of you as the turn comes. Thank you so much. So what I wanted to give you a taste this wintry morning is that joy of a child. And what can we do? We, of course, won't buy ourselves Legos and we won't buy ourselves dolls and toy cars. No. We will start with what we have, a plain page, blank page, and pen. So if I may request each one of you to pick up that pen and pick up that page and put that, uncap that pen and put it on the paper. And I will throw at you a couple of questions. And without thinking, you will just have to write them down. You have to write the answers down. So I will give you the questions. I will give you very few seconds to write the answers down. Whatever comes to your mind first, you will write that down. Fair? Okay. So the first question goes, complete the sentence. I am. 30 seconds, quickly. I'll keep time. I am. And don't lift your pen until we stop. So if you have finished saying what you are, go on and say some more. I am. Random words, doesn't have to be sentences, anything. And the next question now. I love. What do you love? Don't lift your pen. Whatever comes to mind. Doesn't have to be full form sentences. It can really just be words. It can be a word web. It can be a cluster. Just don't cut out anything. Whatever comes to mind, you write. I love. And the next one. No one is going to see it. I won't even ask you what your answers were. So don't worry. What you loathe with, with passion. What do you not like? Don't lift your pen from the paper. Just go on. Nobody would see it. It's only for yourself. 30 seconds. It could be people, it could be thing, it could be weather, it could be traffic on the road, it could be your boss, it could be anything. What do you loathe? Okay. And the next one. What do you own? What is yours? What do you have? In this one life, in this, current circumstances, in this present identity, in whatever. It could be your car and your house. It could be your sense of self. It could be abstract. It could be real. It could be commercial. But what do you really own? What is yours? What can you call it's mine? People, thing, feelings, nature, earth, universe, anything. And finally, I wish. What do you wish for? For yourself, for the world, for the society, for your home, for your family. for humankind. Maybe, you know, these COVID times have reminded us there's so much to wish for the way we are even living our lives. So what do you wish? We are good to go? Yeah? Okay. So pens down. And would somebody tell me how this entire experience was? Anybody, if you raise your hand. Don't have to give me your answers. Don't have to share anything that you don't want to share. But how did it feel? Sarena, if I may unmute you, or
Yeah. Well, the entire exercise was the feeling of what I have been going through past few days. So I could put it on paper, especially during COVID times. That I feel like a restless soul. I want to break free, freedom. That is what my current feelings are. So that is what has come down on paper. So yeah, it's
awesome.
kind of kind of. Maybe I know this, but yes, I'm expressing this here, so makes more sense now. What am I actually
Do
looking
you
for?
think expressing this gives us a little bit of a respite, a little bit of coming close to ourselves?
Yeah, yes, definitely. I truly feel that writing is a very good form of expression. I think everybody should indulge in some kind of writing. It makes you accountable for your own feelings. I know what I'm going through, but yes, when I put it down, I relate to it better. That's what I feel.
Thank you so much. Yeah. So if I may now, what if now I now reveal a secret that all the time that when we were writing down these answers, and if you have noticed, it is an acronym, right? I am, I love, I loathe, I own, and I wish. What we are really doing is allow. ALLOW. I am, I love, I loathe, I own, I wish. We are only allowing ourselves to admit what we are actually feeling, but not saying that we are feeling. And here is the secret. I don't want any of you to say these aloud because these are very private, intimate, passionate, personal feelings. But if we were to share our sentences and our words, we are some good 28 people here, we would realize how much of it is common. And it is this thread that could connect us, but we miss out on it. So if I may unmute somebody else, Moshumi, I can, if you are there, I can see you, but I cannot see your face. Hi, Moshumi. So how did this exercise feel? If you can unmute yourself.
Hi, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Yeah. So, what I do, I always tell my office people whenever I'm in the office that please start writing down everything, documenting everything. But as you asked us to write all this down, I realized that I have never done this exercise before. I mean, what I am, what I love. I mean, it might be there in my head, but I never allowed myself to write it down and understand myself. And because you didn't give us time, it was just we had to do it at the spur of the moment. So whatever was there in the subconscious mind, it just came out.
Yes, that's the
So
objective.
that's the beauty. I mean, then I realized that when you, especially this question, I own, and I realized what I have written. Like I have written, I own myself. So that means whatever I'm doing, I'm the person who is responsible for it. So I cannot go on, I mean, putting the blame on others saying that, oh, you have done it. So whatever we are doing, we always, I mean, the onus is on us. And that's the beauty of the entire exercise. Thank you for making us do it. I mean, I never
Thank
did it
you for
before.
doing it. Thank you.
So
Okay,
this is
if I can
beautiful.
ask somebody else, maybe Alokda, I can see you. Have you been able to write down the answers? Were you there on time? I would love to hear from you. Alok da?
Unmute. Yes,
Yeah.
good morning.
Good
Yeah,
morning.
generally I have been right since the beginning. And good exercise. This actually leads you to introspection. And we never think about ourselves in our daily exercise or annual plans or a life plan, as we call it. Most of us do not include ourselves as the center point. So it's good to going through the exercise. I felt good doing this exercise. And then when you put questions like, what is that you wish? It becomes easy and very difficult at the same time. I mean, depending on whether you want to be a poetic or practical, the answers could be different. But with integrity, if you say what you wish, this actually leads you to introspection, like every other question. So it's a good exercise, and it's a holistic thing to do to yourself once in a while, maybe periodically. Yeah, good. Thank you, Sinjini.
No, pleasure. It's thank you for doing this. The reason I wanted to do this is, yes, Sarena, you wanted to say
I just
something.
want to add one thing. Just as you said a few minutes ago, that, you know, if we were to disclose what we have written, we would find many common threads of what we have written. So Mosmi just said that when she wrote, when you asked her what she owns, she said, I own myself. So that is what I wrote. I wrote, I own my thoughts. I own, and the second sentence was, I own myself. So I really understand what you said now. Like, all of us will have at least 50 to 60% common threads of what we have written, I feel now. So it was like, okay, even she wrote what I wrote. So just wanted to add that, because I'm sure most of us have so many things in common, though we are from different walks of life and we have different experiences and different backgrounds, different educational qualifications. But still, I think when it comes to an individual, I feel we almost are in the same boat somewhere, you know. So it makes a lot of difference. Thank you
And the
for this
thing
exercise.
about, thank you. And the thing about this exercise or any other form of talking about ourselves and our core beliefs and our core identity, the funny thing is that when, for example, if we were to ask ourselves, what does Sarena have and what do I have, then it may turn out to be, oh, we have the same car model. And in my head, I would be like, oh, I need to buy a new car or I need to buy a new phone. But when we hear, we feel the same thing. It gives us joy. It gives us a huge amount of solidarity and a huge amount of comfort to know that we are all feeling the same thing. And that is perhaps the beauty of storytelling and of having a voice that I really wanted to talk about today in this session. So many of you asked me that, what is voice? Voice is, of course, biologically speaking, the throat and the friction making some sound. But what is voice? When I was writing my book and I was reading more about the craft of writing, and when I also wrote different formats, right? Writing a column, writing a social column, writing a screenplay, writing a novel, writing a short story, everybody speaks about voice as that unique identity. It's almost like fingerprint. That is yours alone. And here is the irony. The moment you express your voice, you realize you are not alone in it. Everybody has a voice. It is as unique and as universal as it can get. And the reason we must use our voice and the reason we must come home to our voice is, there is this race that we have been put up against each other, right? So you do these certain things and you get these certain things in life. But now we realize, and now all the more, right now, we realize that the connection, the emotional exchange that we can make with each other with the use of voice, be it spoken voice, be it a video, be it an art form, be it anything, or be it just a Facebook post. Everybody writes, yesterday's dinner and puts up restaurant pictures. And if you put up a picture saying that yesterday I burnt my food and we went without dinner, I know I would put up my hand and say me too. And that's the beauty of stories. It helps us connect without the jazz and without the show off and with our vulnerability. And I think in today's world, nothing else could be as precious as that human connection. So I wanted to take you to, what the stories really mean and why stories, what's the big fuss about? I mean, we are all busy, right? I mean, we took out this 1.5 hours on this Saturday morning, but really, do we have time, or why bother? Why care? So thinking about why and what and how stories came at all, we have to go back perhaps many years back. And I'm talking also of human species. I'm not even going to the other forms of exchanges. It is said that ants, when they, have you ever seen that ants follow each other? And how do they do that? They can exchange chemicals in their heads. So different species have very interesting formats of exchanging their emotions and, intuitions. Human beings, if you think of it, even before, and think of it like seriously, before language was invented, we can imagine that our, ancestor fathers and ancestor mothers, forefathers or foremothers, they would gather at the same place every year, like every day. Sorry, I'm sorry, I got distracted because of the, okay. Yeah, hi Ishita, it's fine, thank you. So our forefathers and foremothers, they would gather around, around the cave they used to live in. And maybe without language, just with the use of grunts and physical expressions and body language, they would tell each other that, go to that forest there and there is a honey, there is honey pot there. Or I was attacked by a lion in that corner of the forest, so don't go there. They used to draw stick figures on the cave walls to be able to document the kind of animals that were there at their times. And the only archaeological evidence we find now are those stick figures. So stories are actually older than language. And also to think of it, this is in terms of timelines and history. But think of what happens when a baby is born. It is said that a baby develops hearing capacities inside the womb. It is scientifically true. A baby can hear inside the womb. Like obviously Mahabharata, we have, the story where we know all of that, right? So that is actually biologically true. A fetus can hear music, etc. Even when the baby is born, before she can express or before she has picked up the language of, of whatever the mother tongue she is born to, we tell the baby, don't go there, there is fire, fire is dangerous, don't hang and you will fall, or eat and you will become strong. When you grow up, if you study hard, if you grow up, you will become this person. So our earliest moralities, our earliest belief systems, everything is essentially an extension of story. But as we grow up, we kind of overlook this faculty because our school education system teaches us a certain kind of expression. It is like, Swati, if you can please unmute, that would be really nice. If everybody can please unmute. So our earliest morality, our earliest sense of right and wrong, our earliest sense of, this is what to do, this is what not to do, these are all a product of stories. And when we grow up, we, through the education system, we are given a certain format that you have to rote learn certain things, you have to understand certain things, etc. And what we miss out is the power of communicating through words and emotions and feelings. There is only one right and one wrong, and you have to get the maximum marks you can to be able to guarantee that admission, that job, that, the next step. But how does stories really matter today, to think of it? If you see, now we have arrived at a certain phase of civilization, if you may call it so. There was this industrial age when man, or it was man actually, because women didn't have so much of representation at work. So human used to work alongside machine. So humans used to actually, take the luggage alongside machine, and we, the real comparison was cost comparison, whether it takes more money to purchase a machine which can do it, or whether we can get people to do it. From there, we moved on to the knowledge age, where we spoke about trying to get facts and informations and scientific data and technicalities. And now, interestingly, we have arrived at a time when, frankly, artificial intelligence is looming over us, and everything that we thought we could do can be done now. The most sophisticated surgeries are being done by bots. I love this quote from the director of London School of Economics, where he says that, in the past, jobs were about muscles. So whoever was stronger was more preferred than whoever was weaker. And that is perhaps also where, the gender difference came in. And then the time came when it was about brains, and we were actually about inventing and discovering new things and cracking new codes. But now a lot of that has been done, and it's on a self-propelled basis. And now what really differentiates one from another in productivity, in profession, in human life, in society, is the heart. I love also this saying by Chris Anderson, who is the owner of TED. So, I say this a lot at every opportunity I get, that in today's time and age, when technology can do practically every single thing that human beings used to do before, the only way left to be human is to be human. The only way left to be human is to be human. I mean, everything that we thought were our shortcomings, because, oh my God, we are mortals, we are mere mortals, we have only 2 hands and 2 legs, are now our strengths. And stories sit right at the center of it. So I wanted to talk a little bit about a few ideas and a few tools and techniques about stories. But before that, I would like to just take 2 or 3 comments, questions, thoughts. If any of you will raise your digital hand or want to share some ideas about what we spoke about till now. Anyone? Debduti, if I can request you. Anyone? Gaurav? Okay, so let me just go ahead with the stories. So I just wanted to share with you a few tips and techniques, a few quick ways in which we can tell better stories. Here is the fact that we are telling stories all the time. Even with our silence, we are telling stories. We are like a 24/7 broadcasting machine. Even when we are thinking that, oh, we are silent and, a silent person doesn't have any enemies, we know that we are being counted in for our silence. So what can we do to make our presence and our stories and our communication and our feelings and our connections more powerful and more endearing and more sticky, more impactful, more influential? What can we do to be counted in? So one thing I often talk about in terms of structuring our stories is that it is simple, no? Open a gap. Tell people that, did you know that ants exchange feelings through chemicals in their head? Did you know? In anything, open a gap in the mind of the person who you are talking to, in the mind of the audience if you are putting up a LinkedIn post, in the mind of people when you are talking at a dinner party. Did you know? Do you know? You know what happened last day? Open a gap and then fill the gap. This is the reason. These are the facts. This is the way people think. This is the reason why this will happen. And then you close the gap. So, what can that person do to help it? We often talk about famous speeches, and we talk about, when Steve Jobs said that, be hungry, be foolish, or when, he said you can connect the dots only backwards, or any famous speech or anything for that matter, simple few words. But what that mean really is something that people were not already doing. So you open that gap, you fill that in, and then you close that gap. Of course, that sounds very simplistic, but when you actually apply it, you hook people with that first question. You explain and hold and engage people with that second bit. And then at the end, you hammer in the idea. So hooks and hammers, you hammer in that idea. And for each one of us who are either making a business presentation at work, or for each of us who have our own ventures and we are going to tell people why it matters. Why it matters, what can you do about it, and here is what you can do about it starting now, is really a 30 seconds or a 30 minutes or a 3 hours conversation that you can have with your audience. That will make a difference. Now, here is the interesting thing, and I want you to pull out your pen and the paper again, one more time. So, if you look back at the answers you gave in terms of what you are, I am, I love, I loathe, I own, I wish, how much of that is based on your credibility or your CV or your identity in the social sense? How much of that is, if you can just circle the words in which it was about your credibility, it was about your ethos, your achievements, something that goes with the byline of our names, which says that, okay, so this person, I can trust this person because he is a subject matter expert in electronics. I know this person because she owns a shop in garments. So how much of that is based on your ethos, your credibility? And then I want to ask you, how much of it is based on your analytic skills? How much of it is based on your logos, the logic? So, okay, so because I stay in Bangalore, I own a house in the countryside because this is close to my office. So how much of it is really a, logical, reason-based critical skill?
Nothing.
No? Good. Awesome.
No. Neither
awesome.
Ethos, neither logics.
Awesome. That is exactly what creativity is made of. And how much of it is pathos? How much of it is really your emotions, your feelings?
I think the entire thing that I wrote was my emotions and feelings, nothing of ethos and logos.
Lovely.
Yeah.
That makes you very emotionally intelligent, because they did a study on all the famous communications from the stage, and this includes state communications, this includes addresses at the conventions of Ivy League universities, this includes like drawing the curtain over large technological inventions, even addresses made by NASA to announce large leaps in scientific evidence. And they said that any speaking from the stage, to be specific, is successful when it has a heavy weightage on pathos. Having said that, there are elements of credibility that gives you access to that stage, and that gives you a kind of impact and influence in the who. Why should I listen to you? Because, okay, you are the thought leader in this industry. Does it make sense? Yes, there is this logical brain ticking inside us which says that, wait, hold on, but didn't I read some study that went against it? But those two elements are secondary when it comes to feelings. And what we want to do with storytelling is to win over people, not to just impress them. And that is where pathos is your superpower. So the thing we were talking about in terms of those old day ancient fireplaces, where bonfires, where our ancestors used to gather and share notes, and perhaps that is where they realized that we can hunt, but we can also grow. And then came the industrial age, then came the agricultural age, and then came the industrial age, and then came the technological age, and then came the knowledge age. And perhaps now we are knocking the doors of the age of wisdom, where the age of wisdom, I feel, has been largely catalyzed by this year 2020, when we were actually suddenly stopped and asked, what have you got? Okay, fine, you have got money. Okay, fine, you have got 2 cars in your basement, but have you got immunity in your body? Do you know enough to listen to your body? Do you know enough to understand what you need and what you want? Do you know enough what is important? Do you know how long you have to make a difference? I think this 2020 was a huge reckoning also in terms of the age of wisdom. And in this age of wisdom, those bonfires and those cavemen and the cave women, that fire has led way to a very different kind of a fire. This fire is about ideas. There is this famous saying by Victor Hugo which says that nothing is as powerful as an idea whose time has come. I mean, think of it. What are the largest and the richest organizations in the world at the moment? What are the biggest organizations in the world at the moment? Google, Facebook, Twitter, these giant organizations, Microsoft, Apple, all of these, not even most of these, all of these were actually born by first generation entrepreneurs in their garage. So you see, it is no longer about what we get from our parents in terms of inheritance. It is no longer about how many floors my home has and how many cars I have, and it's nothing about that. It's actually about the power of imagination, the power of self-belief, the power of knowing yourself, and the power of being able to transmit that knowledge to other people in a way that they will come with you. Not in a way that they will be jealous, not in a way that they would not understand, but in a way so that they will eat out of your hand if you can do it well. To think of it is really, every single way in which we can use this power of communication, this power of storytelling, this power of speaking and writing well. Of course, we know that, we have all been there, for many of us, in the office boardrooms, in large meetings, where it would be really about bar diagrams and pie charts on the whiteboard and on the projector screen, or the large town halls where our company CEO or the company CFO would come and make a presentation about, the quarterly results and the MIS, the management information, like the entire, so this is where we are going, this is the target, this is the percentage, the shareholders said this, and this is the result. And we also know that that communication model is dwindling. It doesn't stick. We would sit and fidget in the seats, and we would think, when is the lunch break? Any of you who feel you have been there like me? So now those communications are changing. Now, if a senior leader in the company comes and says, I know these are hard times, I don't know the answer, but hang in there. I think that is a speech that the employees would remember. That is the communication that would make them work harder and to value their jobs. If somebody has their own brand or their own company, stories are all they have, because again, for all of us who have been, working or thinking in terms of their own brands, we know one thing: people don't care about how much you care unless they know why you care. And people don't care about, there will always be somebody better out in the world. We are not industrial giants who would make the best product possible or the best, service possible. All we can do is put our heart out and put our heart into the mix. And if you think of it, that is what branding is. Just yesterday, I was listening to a very lovely marketing session. And they said that, it was a very interesting thing. They said that if you think of Nike and if you think of Hyatt, if Nike opens a hotel, I think many of us can, in our head, imagine what it would look like, what it would feel like, what would be the experience of staying in that hotel. But if Hyatt opens, if Hyatt makes a sneaker, like, a pair of sneakers, we won't know what it looks like, because one is a company, the other is a brand. So that's the difference. Even when Nike is making sneakers or making, 2-3 things, but there is almost a personification of their brand, so much so that you know what they would do if they were to make buildings. You know what they would do if they were to start an airline, So that's the story of a company. Maggie is Maggie. There are so many other noodles out, instant noodles. But Maggie is that cold winter night and sneaking into the kitchen and huddling and sharing the blanket together while you take a sip. It's a sentiment. And be it boardroom, be it branding, be it your own business, be it somebody else's business, our connection with it, our joy of it, our passion of it is really driven by stories. Our careers, again, I have been in this place where I mistook my career as my job. So for the longest time, I knew what I was supposed to deliver at work, but I never so much stopped to think, how is my career shaping up? And today, now a time has come, and especially in these repeat insecurity models, 2008 we saw, 2020 we saw. It is time that we be known for the work we do, not for the company we work in. As much as we might love our present job, and you are really lucky and fortunate if you love your present job, because that statistic says it's about 5 to 7% of people who love to go to work at somebody else's employment. But even if you are lucky enough to be in that percentage, I would still say that it makes so much sense to be known for the work you do than just for the company you work in. That gives you a sense of self. If you are one of the students who are just starting out, that sets you apart from everybody else. If you are a very senior professional, even then, it is not just about insecurity or being able to continue or discontinue in a company, but it is about your whole sense of self. Are you in a career or in a job? I think that is the story that we tell ourselves, and that is the story that makes all the difference. In social setup, in family, of course, everything really, all the dining room conversations, everything is about story. We do that unknowingly. But what can we do to make it better? What can we do to make an impact? Anybody wants to share anything at this point? I have been talking for a while now. Anyone? Gaurav, I can see you. Any thoughts? If you can unmute yourself.
So I got lost a bit, Shinjini, honestly, while listening to you. While we talked about being in the moment, I kind of started going back into reflecting on my own thoughts and emotions about and how things which are not materialistic, suddenly when you start writing what's important, what's not, what you reflect onto, really they start coming up more important, and they're coming onto the paper with you. And then you start while you're rushing to own a house and a car and a salary, but when you really sit down and think about, and you really are not really bringing them into your priority list, and we just start giving more priority to things that we would otherwise not give priority to. That's kind of coming into my thoughts, and I'm getting more philosophical as of now, and less of a practical and a data oriented guy that I believe myself to be.
Uh-huh. So I think if we revisit that exercise now, I am and I allow, and I wish it might have different answers from you.
No, I don't think I'm going to change the answers. My answers have been all less
Awesome.
materialistic than what he otherwise have been. So
Awesome.
I'm not sure. I may add things, but I'm not going to change anything that I would
Lovely
have put,
to know that it is only the self-realization. I mean, it's not really to make a huge difference in your life or to leave the job to be able to make art or make films or write a book. It's not that. It's just about living more fully and living more self-consciously. And I think that this year particularly has been a little bit of a nudge in that direction. We cannot take for granted what we had and what race we were running so long. So I'm really heartened to hear your answer, Gaurav.
Sure, no problem. Thank you for asking.
And when we talk about, if you can please, yeah, and also when when in my life I can draw a parallel to it, that as a person, as a professional, as an executive in the early years, there was still some kind of a rhythm and some kind of a pattern in which everybody else is operating and I am operating. But when you become a parent, I think storytelling and parenting are really a lattice. You cannot separate the two out. One, parenting holds up a mirror to you. So is this what you mean? And is this, so okay, fine. So is this, if this is this, then that is this. You are always going to be defeated by the logic of your child. I think that's a mandate of being a parent. And there are these very soft realizations that come through. If I may, I just a couple of days back, I have a 9-year-old daughter. So she came back to me one more time again saying that, so they are not taking me in their group. So nowadays they have formed WhatsApp groups and they chat on Google, Zoom and Google Meets, etc. So it's like, I feel like an outsider. And have you ever felt like an outsider? And she was very first angry and then sad that her friends outcasted her and she is now not a part of whatever group. So I told her that, okay, fine. So who else, feels that way? And then she thought for a while and then she told me that, the other girl who joined last year, like she got a transfer from another school and she joined us. She also felt this way for the early months when she joined my class. And I said, okay, fine. Then why don't you talk to her and how she felt? So she got this idea, and then the next, instead of brooding and being cranky, she calls up this other friend and said that, how did you feel when they did not take you in their group? And together they come up with this idea of opening an outsiders club. So now they have an outsiders club where people who felt like an outsider can be members. And so they created posters on Canva saying outsiders club, you are admitted only if you have felt like an outsider and you have been not included in the group. And when you have been all those hard, strong words. And the next, 2 days later, she comes and tells me, Mom, now everybody wants to be a member of the Outsiders Club because somebody, everybody has felt like an outsider at some point. And, this person said, I made her feel like an outsider. That person said she made her feel. So everybody is responsible and everybody felt like an outsider. Now everybody is in the Outsiders Club. And it was, a huge realization for me, because we have all felt that way as adults who are all here in this call, right? We have all felt that way. And only if we would just admit, I burnt my food last night, or I was feeling lonely. I didn't have anybody to call up. I couldn't think of anybody who I could call up. You would see more people would see you for the person you are and would have your back and would support you. And tomorrow when you post about something, I cracked a new job, I got a new order, I have got a new dress, I have got this, they would not be jealous. They would be having your back. They would be cheering for you. They would be on your side. And a lot of things we talk about influence and leadership, be it community leadership, be it corporate leadership, it really is to have people on your side of the table. So storytelling is really not a creativity or not a hobby that we take out and we don't have time for out of our busy life. Storytelling is our life. Storytelling is our career. We are doing it already. We are just not conscious of it. And we can now be more conscious and we can start thinking what we can do to make it better. And not to miss the last point, internal. Storytelling is also those internal dialogues. How many times have you felt I'm not good enough? I'm not ready enough. When I get this, I will be ready to do this. Not now, not yet. Nobody loves me. Nobody cares for me. Each one of us have felt that way, but it is only now I can speak for myself that I have the courage to say that I have felt that way. And it's not easy. And storytelling is going to change your inner dialogues. Because when you write down what I am, what I wish, what I loathe, and give yourself permission to bitterly hate somebody, because you do, but you tell in your head, you are not supposed to do that. But now you are like, I'm admitting to it, I am. And when that inner dialogue changes, everything changes. The other good thing about storytelling or any form of creativity, because storytelling from the stage is only one form. You can storytell through your written words, you can storytell through your spoken words, you can storytell through stick diagrams. Even if you are not a Picasso, you can still do some cartoons. You can do anything, really. And you can make posters, you can do any format. And the good thing about it is not a zero-sum game. It is not that if you use it up today, you won't have it tomorrow. In fact, it is just the other way. The more you use it, the more you have it. It is an unlimited reserve. The more you read, the more you can think of things to say in a group discussion. The more you can participate with the conversation at the coffee machine in office, the more they would remember you and they would think of you when they see an opportunity. The more you talk about your vulnerable feelings, the more they would be on your side and they would bang the table in favor of you behind those closed doors. It is not perhaps so much our scores or our performance, it is our presence and our connection that would open up this treasure chest of reserves. And the more you have it, the more you have it. It's a virtuous cycle. You can never run it dry. The other thing is you can take it where it goes. Today you are in one company. Tomorrow you go to another company, do the same job. Today you are in one company in one department. Tomorrow you are in the same company in another department. Today you are working. Tomorrow you are taking a break. And day after you are starting your own company. Today you are on one group on Facebook where somebody knows you or timeline. And tomorrow you think that for your profession or for your personal or for your social, you are introduced to another group where nobody knows you. You are your identity through your stories. You cannot take the codes that you write in a company. You cannot take the, the charts and the spreadsheets, but you can take your stories. And of course, the only person who is going to be your competition in this is that mirror in which you see you. The only person who will ever be wanting to catch up with you and become better than you is you. Because nobody else has your stories. Nobody else has those moments in your childhood where your grandmom told you stories and made you eat more just by telling you stories or put you to sleep with lullabies. Nobody else has the same grandmother. Nobody else has the same childhood home. Nobody else has the same tree that you climbed as a child among your colleagues or your classmates. So you are your only competition. Nobody can grab your stories and make them their own. It will be you. And this is this unlimited reserves that you can use every day. I mean, how much time do we spend on social media? How much time do we spend with colleagues at work, but not working at the computer, but at the coffee machine or at lunch or at breakfast or catching up over snacks in the evening? How much time do we spend on the dining table or in the living room with people in our family? All those times, you don't have to take out separate time. All those times can be reconstructed with this abundance. Just if you know how to make better use of those times and how to make use of your stories to make a difference. So I wanted to pause at this point and again open it up and see if any of you have anything to share. Tell me, what is it you want to do with your one wild and precious life? What is it you want to do? Anything. And it is going to be about stories. It cannot go away from stories. Anyone wants to share? Shushangatada, if you are there, I would love to hear a little bit from you.
Hi Shinjini, this
Hello.
is Sangat. I must admit I'm mesmerized. I'm hearing you for the first time, and I'm just simply bowled over what I heard just now from you. And as someone said, I think it's Gaurav, that it's just like a flashback movie which is coming in out as I sit in the sun, listening to you, seeing you, and all those ideas. There's a lot of, as you said, a lot of emotions coming up throughout my mind. And as I write down all those things about what I am, what I love, what I loathe, and what I wish, I saw that I have written from my heart. And first time in my 54 years, I have written something which I truly believe. First time in my 54 years, I have written something which I haven't done in 54 years, and which I wish to do in my next part of my life. And there are so many plans in life. I want to go for a bike ride. I want to go to Bhutan. There's so many plans in my life. The most important plan is that I wish I could leave my job in the next 1 year and fulfill my plan. So I think this is a stepping stone which I'm going to hear right now, which makes my plan a little bit more solid. And I wish, and I'm sure I will take something out of it today. Thank you so much. I'm blessed listening to you.
I'm touched. Thank you so much. Thank you. Virtual hugs. Thank you so much. It means the world to me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anyone else want to share anything, any thoughts, or any way in which you have used stories, you have not used stories? Madhurantika.
Hi, Srinjali. Thank you for an excellent session. I would agree, as was just said, mesmerizing. So I work with a very formal group of people, and that's the central bankers. I work with an association which works with the ministries of finance and central banks from 84 countries. When I joined this organization, I found the seminar, and I had the training department. When I joined the organization, I saw that trainings were a series of lectures with no care about the audience, and it was just a one-way communication. It has been a struggle for me to break this and make it into a conversation with the audience. And in the process, I discovered that storytelling was the way to go about. So I've incorporated storytelling a lot. In central banks, it's always about big financial graphs, and like during the COVID, the central banks are in such stress because the COVID has created such an havoc with the economy. But if you look at those graphs and figures, they all have a story. Those numbers have stories behind them. So I have tried to work on it, and I have even made presentations to board of directors of central banks, and they are such senior people, and sometimes I think, what do I tell them? So I don't go and tell them big economic theories, but I would just take up an example, a case study of a hawker on the road, the chaiwala in front of my building, and I would tell them a story of how the regulatory policies they make, how they impact that chaiwala. And it has worked. And that's the change that I've been able to do. My challenge is, if I tell my colleagues, my other policymakers, that we use storytelling as a technique, there is a huge pushback because they think storytelling is for children. So over time, I have tried to incorporate in my training, the training of trainers that I do, I've tried to use the technique, but I don't call it storytelling because there's a huge pushback to it. But it's the same story they appreciate. Or sometimes they'll say, oh, Madhu, you can carry it. We can't. Because I think it's the mental block people have when you use storytelling in corporate settings or very formal settings. But I have also found that very senior central bank governors, right, some of them are very good orators, and they have always used storytelling. So I keep telling them, if a central bank governor can use storytelling, why can't you as a policymakers and other people use storytelling? So I think it's a lot of mental blocks people have, but definitely, as you said, the time of PowerPoint presentations and all that one-way communication is dwindling. And I think it's the time when we replace those with a conversation with the audience, and storytelling is definitely the way forward.
Yes, thank you so much for that. And yes, so true. I was nodding throughout every word you said. I mean, think of even now, like when, early April, May, when we were all hooked to the screen and tracking the numbers of the positive cases in the vicinity or in our state, in the country, in the other countries of the world. We were obviously, tracking those numbers, etc. But the moment we heard that friend's mom who got positive, the moment we heard that person who is being attempted with a plasma therapy, one story, it talks to us and it makes us personally connect to it, be it a good. And the moment, I heard personally one of my neighbors, old neighbors who got admitted, she's 76 and then she recovered, she came out. That one story of hope, that mattered to me so much more than hearing 67% of the people in the age group of 65 and plus are coming back. Good fact, good to know. But that one story that you can relate to. So even when we talk statistics, because it is not an either or, even when we are making a business presentation or we are making a marketing pitch, it could be, imagine one person who is out on the road who could not find this, and she looked in 3 shops here, and then she went there and she looked and she could not, and then she, came upon this thing, and this is how it solved her problem. Now imagine if we can do this in 300 cities. Business storytelling is not so different from personal storytelling. We only have to personalize for the impact or for the emotion, and then we easily scale it up by giving the numbers to put it in context. You are so right that there is a mental block, and between us and our stories, there's only that mind block, and we can work with it. Thank you for sharing that. At this point, and I am also very touched, for quite a few of you are people who I'm meeting for the first time and through the screen, and a number of you also have seen me through my entire life. In fact, I have a friend, I have my sibling on this call, and I have another friend who I have been friends with since we were 2.5, 3 years old, Devduti. So we have, I'm personally very touched, and there is all of the Shushangatada who have seen me through that journey. So for those of you who don't know me, I did not keep a slide for my introduction because I felt a little self-conscious doing that. But just to give a little sneak peek into my story, I studied economics from ISI, and then I went on to become a qualified actuary, and I spent 12 years of my life talking to computers in numbers. Through that, I have been a young mom struggling between job and work, and at home, I would have to pretend I don't have a job. At work, I would have to pretend I don't have a baby. So the usual connections, the usual voids, emotional, personal, physical, time mismatch. Then I took a huge career swerve. I didn't take it, frankly. It happened to me. I was burnt out. I was a step away from quadriplegia in 2014. The doctor told me that you have to take a break to recover, then you can go back to work if you want to. 2015, I left my job thinking it's the end of my life, because I couldn't imagine not working. I have been grown up with a mindset that, it's not money, but it's professional success that I have been brought up with. And to me, it was a huge, huge blow. It was unbelievable. I didn't have a sense of living if I didn't work. It was around that time, as I often say, it was not me who picked up the pen. It was the pen that picked me up. I started to speak, I started to write, and quite a number of things happened which took me on its wings and just flew with me. So as I talk to you today, I am 2 TEDx old, I am 1 book and many anthologies old, and I am the founder of Lighthouse, where I teach programs in storytelling and creativity. And I think one of my major identities is that I'm a spiritual seeker. I have spent thousands of hours in noble silence, and I have been in Vipassana retreats 5 times over 10 days of full, not talking to anybody, just going inwards. So I've done a whole lot of inner work. And also the thing I have done over the last 5 to 6 years is I have studied a whole lot of things I could put my hands on, which includes psychology, positive psychology, self-determination theory, and to understand how human motivation works. What are the intrinsic motivation? What are the extrinsic motivations? And I'm very enthusiastic about gender intelligence. I'm not a gender activist because I feel I don't know all the answers. There are certain social constructs. There are injustices, many of them. But there is also a huge need to understand the softness and the power of the soft, than having to have, to try to masculinize the women. We should look at harnessing the power of the soft, because all of us, men and women alike, I think we need a little bit of experiential life rather than success oriented, accomplishment oriented life. And we need a change of mindset. There are many problems, but we need to be a little more soft, and we should hold space for each other. And creativity was my bulb going inside my head, because I felt creativity is something that defies your economics of zero-sum game, that you have a pie and you fight for the share of the pie. Creativity is your own, and you can take it wherever you go. You can apply it in your dining table, you can apply it in your job, you can apply it inside your head. So for me, it was a light bulb moment, and that is where I'm speaking from. So yeah, as I am sure all of us understand, and the COVID times have been a huge reckoning, that we don't have forever to make a mark. We cannot imagine that today I live my day and tomorrow I'll start living my life. It's suddenly like we have been handed a ticking clock, and the clock is going out of its reserves. I feel that if this time is not enough to knock us on the head and tell us, wake up girl or wake up boy, I wondered what it would be. If this is not enough, I don't know what is enough. This time has been a huge reckoning. So I have spent my last many years diving deep and also looking around and trying to see what works for me. I mean, if I know what works for me, only then I can offer it, and only then somebody else who might recognize it, who might feel that it speaks to me, they might benefit. It might not be for everybody totally, but I know that there was this need in me which I have been able to solve, and I'm very lucky. So I just wanted to bring that gift to everybody else, and that is why we are doing the session today. So this is what I teach. At Lighthouse, I teach emotional intelligence and the power of storytelling and creativity and creative intelligence. And I feel that that can make a huge difference in our lives. So this is a course that I'm starting in January. So I thought this is a good opportunity to talk to you people who are like-minded people who have chosen to spend this time with me today morning, and to see if any of you would want to hop on in this journey with me. What I really teach is about the creative abundance, and to unlock that, it's almost like a rusted, we have lost the key, but it's inside us. There is a treasure chest, and we have to unlock it. And then how to use the craft, because a lot of, so I'll just tell you what all I'm going to teach in this really. So there are going to be 8 sessions, 2 hours each, and over 1 month's time. So it's a full 1 month course, twice a week in the evening, where we will be going through each of the blocks. So the first block would really to understand what are the creative faculties inside our head. There are many ways to do that. I actually, this is a very experiential workshop really. So I adopt the 6 thinking hat, where when I say red, you talk about emotions. When I say blue, you talk about facts. When I say yellow, you talk about abundance, and when I say green, you talk about nature and creativity. When I say black, you don the critical hat, and you find out the audit and the negative and the so there is this cultivating the different faculties inside us, the artist brain and the logic brain, and to see how the 3 of them agree. Because if any of you have read the book I Am Okay, You Are Okay, it's like we have 3 people inside our head. One is the child, one is the parent, and one is the adult. So the child always wants, I want ice cream, I want chocolate, I want more screen time. And the parent is like, no, you cannot have it, you have to study the whole day. And the adult is the one who comes in and says, okay, fine. So 1 hour screen time, 2 hours of maths practice, and this time for rest. And it is all about integrating and finding peace with these 3 voices in our head, which is going to unlock our creativity and make us more joyful, and in process more successful, of course. So the next, what I do is, in the next session, we talk about structure and the transition, and what to say, how to say, and what is the purpose, and how to make an impact. And this is essentially about building a muscle. as much as it is not about one sprint, but a marathon. So we talk about one idea, one story, one speech, one whatever artistic format you want to use, but then we also see how we can apply it many more times. So it is about the structure and the design. And then we talk about creative writing and character setting, how to write emotions. How does emotion show on our body? So instead of saying he's angry, you say his voice began to quiver or her arms began to shake. So how do you embody the emotions? And a large part of our good writing versus bad writing is about show than tell. So since I have written both a book as well as movie screenplays, I know how it is easy to fall into a third person, this happened, versus to make you a part of that experience, to make you like, I can tell you, yesterday when I was out on the street and I saw an accident and oh my God, I don't know if that person will survive, the policeman came and etc. Or else I can tell you that, and then I was crossing the road and suddenly there was this shocking voice. And when I turned, wow, and there was a crash. And that woman there, the moment the police van arrived and there was this siren going on and the ambulance came in. You see the difference between the two stories? So that is what the secret sauce of storytelling does. One tells you, another shows you. So that is what we will be doing in the third session. The fourth session is about voice, because as much as we can write and edit and bring out something, how we say it makes a whole lot of difference. And while there is of course a market and a huge space for readers and writers, a lot of people are also being present through their physical presence, through videos, through their physical presence in the society, in the office, etc. And how we project, how we empower our voice, that becomes very important. In fact, oftentimes it becomes very important to also switch. So when I'm saying about something, and that time, and so this person on his deathbed, and he was gone. Instead of saying it with a crying gesture, when I say it with a smiling gesture, it makes all the more a dent. If I say something like, I use this in one of the speeches where I spoke about my daughter, and I said that, in the airport, so I was running temperature and she came and told me that, my mom is hot, my mom is hot. And instead of laughing, I said that, and why are you laughing? Because you think there is the first time somebody ever called me hot? You are right. And I say it with so much of sadness, it makes people laugh all the more. So there are a lot of insight techniques and nuances of voice, how we can get the people. You see, right now I'm slowing down my voice, and maybe hopefully your attention has peaked a little, because I was earlier speaking with higher speed and now I'm speaking more slowly. So there are lots of techniques and lots of magic that we can do just with this vocal cord. And of course, the body and mind, using the hand, using the eyes, using our body, using the stage, using the presence, opening up our arms, and also retaining our own original style, and not to try to mimic somebody, but to find our own body style to be able to deliver a power-packed punch in the audience. And the sixth session, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, yeah. The sixth session is all about audience management, because as much as we try to empower ourselves and dress up and put makeup and go, it's about audience. It's about them. They are the hero and the heroine in your story. If not, why would they listen to you? You are the hero and heroine in today's session, not me. So that is where audience and the presence and the ability to connect comes in. We have to meet them where they are and take their hands and bring them with us. And that is the power and the objective of storytelling. The seventh one is on communication, because I feel that one-way stage talking is definitely a very powerful way. We can do it from the stage, we can do it through YouTube video, we can do it through our physical presence, but how to engage and how to communicate and how to have also difficult conversations. how to enter a good negotiation, how to enter a good way of dealing with conflict. Communication is one thing that is often missed when we talk about speaking, because we assume it's one-way speaking, but it is not. So my 7th session is all about communication, which is two-way or multi-way communication. And then at the last session, we see how we can make it mainstream. How we can make it every day of our life, how we can make it a part and parcel of our lives. And through that, what will happen is we will change. It is essentially a transformation process. So that is what I wanted to share with you. This is something that I do. And these are a few of my, few of the people. I actually selected 4 people from 4 different countries just to show you that it may seem that we are very different, but we are not so different. All of us were, having the same stories and same emotions. So any question at this point? I know we are just a little, we have another maybe 3-4 minutes. I'll try to quickly come to the point, but any thoughts at this point?
Yes, engineer.
Hey, Shukrit, hi.
How are you? Good.
Good. So good to see you. I'm sorry I didn't notice. I could see only a few people. I'm so glad you are here.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, Sinjini, my compliments. First of all, very nice session. And the way you articulated, the storytelling, nuances was very, very nice. And the best thing that I liked about this session was, everybody communicates, no doubt about it. But the honesty of communication is something that makes the biggest impact. The honesty of the words that you are saying, the honesty with which you are relating yourself with examples is something that I would say is a takeaway for me, which was very, very nice. And though storytelling is not a new subject, I think we all know that ever since we were born, we are surrounded with stories. And even today, I think, the grandparents who have been stories are the best stories that we even remember till today. I'm sure, everybody would agree to that. So net, what I feel is communication is the core, in whatever we are doing, whatever we want to achieve, in that communication is the core. And how, when, and what we communicate becomes very, very crucial. And in that, the spice that we can add is the storytelling part. So with honesty, with passion, with integration, if we are able to include the storytelling in our communication, that becomes our every word that we communicate becomes so very successful. So I would like to thank you again for this beautiful session, and would certainly like to be a part of your next sessions. Thank you, Sinjini.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. And thank you. Seriously, thank you. I know I'm wary of time, so I'll move quickly. So that is the session that I teach, but I'm going to, I'm now going to include 3 bonus in it, because I know that as much as we know storytelling is very important, there are a few hurdles that come in our way. One is obviously, there is a term called glossophobia. It says that, the fear of public speaking, and it is said that fear of public speaking is the #1 fear in human beings, more than the fear of death. So I personally feel that to admit that I'm nervous is the best way, but there are many insider techniques in which you can work through that fear and you can make it into a power, and you can use it to connect with audience, and you can also breathe easy and trust that the audience is there to support you. They're on your side. They want you to win. So I have, created one bonus which will talk, and help you to make your fear into a power. There is another book which I'll share, which is about, the common mistakes and how to avoid them. And there is, of course, the one which is about becoming pro and what makes it great, what makes it, powerful. and impactful and stick and make a difference and make a change in the life. So these are the things I'm going to do in it. So I wanted to share the course with you. The course is priced at this money, but I am not going to charge this from you because, of course, you are special. And I am very excited to bring to you this gift, and I have to do my share of, making it available to you. So what I'm going to do is, this is, what I have come up with. This is going to be a very, very in-depth and very transformational course, 16 hours of live sessions. And at the end of it, we will also share each other's story and give feedback and understand. And it will be a very synergic process. With the bonus and with everything, I have, brought it down to 10,000 rupees for 1 full month of 16 hours of spending together and learning to tell our stories better. So I wanted to share with you this opportunity, and if any of you would be interested to join me, it would be definitely my utter pleasure. I mean, I'm already blessed that you joined me today, and I know that it will make a difference in your life.
Sinjini, what are the timings?
The timings are Wednesdays and Fridays, 8 to 10 in the night. I kept night time so that it's after office time for everybody.
Okay. For me, it's always 24/7 office time, that.
I can imagine.
So I am really interested in joining, because today, while I was going through the entire thing, when you said that I wish, and I wrote that I wish I could be born with less ego and more of the pathos part. And while you were doing the storytelling session, I thought that we can use this to build a brand. That is what I'm working at right now, that. So this is lovely. Thank you so much.
So the way
I could connect at each and every moment, and I would like to join it, but I have to just adjust the timing.
Yes, but I have kept it at 8 to 10 because I felt that is after everybody's usual work hours. Of course, I know about
it's US 2 days in a week, isn't it?
It's Wednesdays and Fridays, 8 to 10. And if you think that it can benefit anybody else in your family, children, again, maybe 15 plus, because I feel that, there has to be some kind of understanding to be able to come up to speed. Younger children need a very different kind of, need their own group to be able to learn and teach. But this is really for everybody, and whatever you are doing in life, I can promise you that this is going to make a difference in your life.